Good morning, everyone, and welcome to River River's October meeting. I declare the meeting open. Just before I read some stuff, I might just get the Director of Corporate Services just to explain to those people viewing the rules that we've got in regard to masks.
Yes, Council's been working closely with LG New South Wales on our requirements, with the new COVID restrictions in place. So the advice that we've received is that within our offices, our fully vaccinated staff do not require to be wearing masks. However, unvaccinated staff will still be asked to wear masks. And of course, it's always your choice whether or not you choose, if you are vaccinated, if you still do choose to wear a mask. Any of our public places, so for example, the library, we would all be required to wear masks. In the council chambers, as we have no members of the public here, it is still considered an office space. However, if we did invite members of the public in, we would all then be required to wear masks.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Right, item 2 is the I've opened and live streaming statement. The River Council wishes to advise members of the public that council meetings will be recorded and will be available after each meeting on the council's website. All care will be taken to maintain the privacy of those in attendance. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event your image is broadcast. This includes any filming by television cameras if attendance is approved by the General Manager or Mayor. Acknowledgement of country, item 3. I would like to acknowledge that we're here today on the land of the Wamba Wamba Pareppa people. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to past Aboriginal elders, the present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who reside within this area and their future generations. Item 4, statement of purpose. I've come here as a councillor freely and without bias to represent the views of the community in considering the matters before us today, to vote in a matter I consider to be in the best interest of the community, and to observe the code of conduct and respect the rule of the chair and the views of my fellow council. Item 5 is apologies. We have a request from Councillor Bull for her leave of absence today. She's had to go to Melbourne with her husband because of eye surgery. So it's someone like that. Second by Councillor Wallace. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6 is a confirmation of minutes of the September meeting. They've all been circulated. Would someone like to move that they be received? Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Metcalfe. Any questions or queries?
Yeah, just on page 7, Lenny Braden.
Thank you, Councillor McCracken. Amended. Any other questions? All those in favour? Yes. Carried. Item disclosures of interest. Any councillors who have got that should have had the form which is on your in front of you. Item 8 is the mayoral minute. Is infrastructure contributions reforms. This has been initiated by, you'd like to probably fill that in, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The Local Government New South Wales, which is the big body for local government in New South Wales, has initiated a campaign which is speaking out against the proposed bill around the infrastructure contributions. It's the Environmental Planning and Assessment Amendment Bill 2021, and it calls on the New South Wales government to undertake further consultation. Essentially, in a nutshell, this view is that there is a lack of funding, some risk of further contributions being ignored, particularly in growth areas, and that there is a lack of clarity around the ability for the New South Wales government and New South Wales for the government to essentially commandeer that money to be used across the state elsewhere. We don't have in the Council a particular Section 94 development contribution strategy, but it may have future impacts on council. So it's obviously pushed through for council to support or otherwise this campaign undertaken by local government New South Wales.
Thanks, Phil. Any questions on that? It's just a virtual letter of support for local government New South Wales because what the government's trying to do. The multi-recommendations here. Councillor Fogarty, we've got a second. Councillor Metcalfe, any questions or queries? All in favour? No. Carried. Item 9.1.
Mr. Mayor, just before we go into this, I actually have a disclosure of interest to disclose that item 10.
Item 9.1, minutes of the airport users meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the minutes from the recently held airport users meeting have just been provided for council's information and comment. As noted in the report, the committee is an advisory committee, not a Section 355 committee. Has no powers to promote council policy. So any recommendations or information coming up out of the committee will come up with motion back to council. Will come up as a separate one for Tuesday's meeting. Discussions regarding the park layout and working with the group around concept potential layout. So the input from the committee has been great with coming up with the layout as it is at the moment. Also discussions around developments around my project and signage. Positive meeting, engagement.
Exactly how it turned. Quite positive.
Yeah, no, it was great. There's definitely a committee of people interested in the facility and it's the facility.
Thanks, Mark. There's a recommendation there that we note the minutes of the meeting. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor McGrath?
No, I just want to make a comment. Just on page 26, you listed the next meeting as being Tuesday, the 7th of September. Is that correct? Yeah.
No, that will be Tuesday, the 7th of November. And I'll have to check with to Tuesday now. Sorry, yeah.
Moved by Councillor McGrath. We've got a second. Second by Councillor Metcalfe. I'd like to thank the right-hand side for being quite. Any further questions? Councillor Wallace.
I thought we'd finished doing up those Melbourne hangers. I thought we'd spent money on them, and I see they're working.
So as an older asset, they will maintenance that. So we've been doing a fair bit of work on hangers, mainly doors, and also some work on skylights with the roof. The comments at the meeting were the other hangers around the roof and screws or that come loose or get into it. So that's a maintenance issue, not so much a capital issue. At this point in time, we have contracted with a superleaf doing work on the hangers with the skylight. We'll be able to do that rather than as was offered at the meeting. We'll plan to take that as well.
How long would those hangers be? 70 years old?
They came in on the back of a truck for the doors, so they'll be mid-40s. The development hangers, the design is that the whole hanger can be placed on the back of a semi-trailer and erected.
So that'd be consistent maintenance problem.
Yeah, they are. And a number of airports, a number of councils have them.
76 years.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. We have moved received it.
Yes, we have.
Any further questions? All those in favour? Carried. Moving on to 10.1, Rotary Park Users Group. Mark.
So reported to council's last workshop, the work that staff and the users at Rotary Park have been doing regarding the Rotary Park user group. Noted that Memorial Park and other facilities have user groups, but in the past, council hasn't had that sort of organisation group with Rotary Park, and users are very keen to get one going. So attached to the report is the draft, at the moment, draft terms of reference based on comments received back from the workshop, and then just recommending the council adopts the terms of reference.
Thanks, Mark. I think it's good to see we've used the model that we've done at Memorial Park, because it took a lot of work to get that group together.
Yes.
And we've used Australia. So I'd like to move the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Fogarty.
Yeah, I think it's good, and it is good that all of the terms of reference are very consistent.
Moved by Councillor Fogarty. We've got a second. Councillor Wallace. Any questions or comments? All those in favour? Yes, carried. 10.2 is the Mayor, Councillors and General Managers meeting.
Yeah, much report, Mr. Mayor. The meetings that have been attended by Mayor, councillors or the General Manager.
Moved by Councillor Fogarty. Second. Councillor Hall, any questions or comments or queries? All those in favour? Yes, carried. Item 10.3, resolutions of council.
Similar, Mr. Mayor, this is a monthly report to the council on the progress of resolutions that the council have adopted. And there's 8 outstanding in the last financial year and 8 outstanding this financial year.
Right. We're going to move it to note the information. Council, moved by Councillor Metcalfe, seconded by Councillor Fogarty. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Item 10.4 is the investments reserve report for August.
Just sorry, Mr. Mayor, we just go back to resolution of council. Page 57. Senior living will come up in report later on. Just the airport sky park development, there was just a note there that the October council meeting, where was going to be a report to council, that Mark had a report for the airport users advisory group. But we're getting a report to the council for the actual sky park development.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. That will come in the November workshop. The report to the November workshop. Review and discuss.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report? All those in favour? Yes. Carried. 10.4, the investment reserves report.
Yes, this is for September 2021. So at the end of the month, we had 48.9 million approximately of cash in the bank. Interest accrued for the month of September was around 24,000, and interest earned but not yet received up until the 30th of September is around 130,000. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologise. We do have August in the heading, the title of the document that needs to be amended to September. We have seen minor fluctuations in our reserve, which is just due to the normal cash flow operations, and we do see continue to see a benefit of using Imperium to support our funding. We have Renee on the line as well, if you have any questions.
I note that in the finance and audit and improvement risk, they talk about the reserves and those that are versely committed and ones that aren't committed, so that council can have a better view to what money is actually available to spend. And I think it would be a good idea to have that up front in these reports so that we're reminded each meeting that there is restricted and unrestricted, and there's reserves that can be actually spent on things, rather than looking at sort of 42 million and thinking what's the spent. So I think there's a report coming from
I have distributed that to councillors. That was emailed around.
yeah. Well, I think that should be sort of part of this report, so that it's up front and everybody can actually see what's there to spend and what's there to be sort of put away.
Make that amendment, looking at.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, another question regarding the reserves. We've got an airport development reserve, and all these internal restricted reserves. We're spending a lot of money in all those areas. The reserves aren't going to be changing. Is that not what the reserves are there for?
Might just ask Renee to come off mute, if you can hear us.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again? I couldn't hear that.
Oh, Renee, sorry, it's Peter here, Councillor McCrone. Just the internal restrictions listed in the investment report. There's quite a bit of money in those restricted reserves for airport development, seniors living, and the town hall. And we're spending quite a bit of money in each of those areas. However, we're not using reserve funds, we're using basically cash out of the general funds, which is subsidising some of these projects that we've got reserves. I'm just questioning why we're not using the reserve money and we're using the general fund.
It's a council decision. A proposal can be made to council to use those funds for those kind of development. So we have general funds available, internal reserves available to us, and external reserves available to us upon application to to OLG if we so wish. So it's a decision that can be made by council as to which funding source we want to use for any project.
Thank you.
As a user of those funds in terms of projects, especially airport and town hall, it is in our project plans to utilise the reserves we have. So it's whilst operation day to day in our planning, using those funds. Just need to make sure that it comes through, as Renee said, through council, that determines to bring that out of reserves into the projects. The intent is at the end of these projects that those reserves will be fully used up, and then there'll be other funding sources for the remainder of the project, as state, cash or clear funding, or additional sources. So probably that, in terms of dealing with the reserves, just probably a little bit behind in terms of journals on that, but in terms of managing the projects, they're definitely within the funding sources and what we're working with.
Yep.
What Councillor McCrone?
Query around that, but the other internal reserves, what is that about?
So we have in the general fund, so we've got internal, internally restricted reserves and then just general reserves. So I have sent the information around, but some of it, for example, is there'll be money committed for certain projects. Some of it may be still some of the merger money, for example. I can give you more detail around that, Councillor Hall, if you like.
Something that I'll bring up, depends on who the new council is, of course, but I think it's one that's come where we've got to look at our reserves in terms of some of the internal restrictions. I know when we went through the merger process that they were very conscious of the restrictions on funds and isolate money. There's been a investigation reserves for 6 years. And that I thought should go into the general fund, but that's probably for the council to make some determination. It's discussing the maturity of this do nothing.
They probably need a bit more explanation as to what they really are. You know, all that dog trial was there for 3,000. The history of that, Mary McCrae, in her organisation, had money that she didn't want to go get lost in the old Conago days. And Conago agreed to put that into its operation for the dog trial, if and when it happens. You know, whether that should be as an item by itself, or should be just included with some notes in documentation as to the guidance in regard to those restrictions. Move it and second it. No second again. Right. Any further questions on that? We have a second, please.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Fogarty. No further questions? All those in favour? No. Carried. 10.4. Also, community consultation report, Romy Sefton.
We're asking Council to endorse the Edinburgh River Council, our region, Your Say community consultation report. We engaged Seftons to undertake the community consultation for us and to prepare the report. Once we have the report endorsed, we will make it available to the community, as well as hoping that this will be a useful tool for candidates in the upcoming election as well. And this report will also be key in us developing our new community strategic plan for the new council. So we're asking for that report to be endorsed.
And then it will become public.
I move the report motion, Mr. Mayor, and just to comment that I thought the report was an excellent report. The consultation that Robbie had conducted was really in depth and very broad right across the whole footprint of Edward River Council, very inclusive of the rural areas and villages. And I think it's an excellent report. It will really give some body to the work of the new council. With the new council coming in, will be a fabulous reference point to work from.
Totally agree. What Councillor Fogarty, you always put some of the names to those community comments.
Yes.
We're going to move a second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Betts, we'll get you recorded.
That's a spirit. Up and firing.
Any further questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wallace.
Let's just move it down. But there's a couple of photos there where I can see the sea.
Yes. I keep doing it.
The mountains.
It's a really good those cabins in the bush.
Nice, you're working out. Yeah.
Page 2 of it all. Those two of those hills.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favour? Carried. Item 10.6. Operations Department monthly update report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just tracking down the attachment for that one. Came out on Monday. So yeah, just our normal operations department report for the month. It has been a challenging time for operations during the month. Just COVID impacts as cases developed in town, and then contacts and how that impacted on the operational workforce. The comments and concerns raised around weeds, both in the rural area and in the urban area, have definitely been taken on board by staff, and over the last week or so, very much a higher level of activity to catch up in terms of mowing, slashing, and other related work. Gravel road maintenance and resheeting continues as they will slashing in those areas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, Mark, is that the reason why we haven't mowed around entrance to the southern entrance to the town? Normally it's well and truly done by you, Mr.
Yeah, it's
No.
It has had an impact on it in that with when cases started coming up in town, and how they the cases and then the contacts and that how they impacted council staff, and our business continuity plan, the decisions that have been made.
It seems odd to me that you come up from our spray and mowed to our boundary. And then there's grass.
Along the highway. So with the highway is also just the differences with the AMCC work and how that's been rolled out. So and you'll see that the COB and the River for the former Denny Council boundaries there. So those areas where we are behind it, taken on board and priority to get on top of that work.
I'll have to back you up, Councillor Wallace, because it's the first time in my 30 years that I've seen ratepayers actually spraying and actually slashing our roads, and it's a boring guy. Really. Well, after 30 years, it's just not working, and something really needs to happen next year in August.
Can I raise this in general business later? Because there's a few issues I want to raise, and might just go on.
We've got that on the list for discussion post meeting.
When the council meeting is to me, I would raise the risk issue to council again.
By slashing and spraying our road signs. That's the biggest concern.
Yes. And there's also the fire one, which the Rural Fire Service are coming down the hills.
Yeah, we haven't got a mover or a second to the report. Councillor Betts.
No, whilst I agree with all of that, the slashing thing, the other thing that concerned me at a risk to council was actually the registrations not being paid on time on the vehicles and things that's listed in here. Like, is that, how does that sort of thing slip? And if the registrations are, like, to me, the concern is behind our plant and equipment. It's worth a lot of money. So the fact that it's not registered, is it being serviced, is it being looked after properly? How did registrations slip through the system?
Through Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor Betts. So in terms of maintenance and that of the plant, I'm sure that they're being undertaken and up to speed. So in terms of registrations, the parts of the process are getting doing the inspections and getting the forms and that required, and then also payments to the services for the government department with it. So that payment's by cheque. It's one of the last people who don't take cheques or credit cards. So they take like a BPay or electronic payment. So, sorry.
I do don't think that.
Yeah, I'll have to take over Maurice because the information I've got.
Point right there in general business.
But yeah, so there was an issue. There was an issue in the check process. Is what led to them not being registered, not anything in the actual roadwork
That was identified, I think quite late in the piece through Mr. Mayor. It shouldn't have happened. We're taking steps to make sure that it never happens again.
What was the process that was here?
As Mr. Dolezal said, it was the requirement to pay by cheque. Those cheques were produced in time. So at the end, it had to be paid. It had to be paid by cheque.
Yeah, one of the groups in there that is, as of right, just playing around heavy vehicles. So going through that process, we would like to have it more streamlined. Absolutely. So there are ways we can streamline it more. It's very key.
So who's got the checkbook? Three paid, 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for a better way to do it. In most of all our other processes, we have automated them, and that's what we want to do with everything. So, as the information on the scene is that it's one of the last ones that is needed by check. If we've got other information that says no, we can do it in a much more streamlined way.
That's right. Where are we? We haven't got a move or a second for this report yet. Councillor Medcard, seconded by Councillor Hall. Any further questions or comments? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. On 10.7 is the 2021-22 Community Grants Program, and you've got a peculiar.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, look, I participated in the panel for this, but I declared an interest in 2 items, one being the money going to the Navarrete Board, given my husband is a director of the Navarrete Board, and also one that was not successful, and that was the Jonathan being a life member of that boat club. And I did not participate in jurisdiction any funds either one in those 2 matters.
Sorry, no, should I was on that panel as well, should I declare? Sorry?
Indirect beneficiary of the funds?
No.
No.
Okay. We ask that the council approve the 2021 community grants recommended funding applications to the value of I didn't put this one out. In accordance with the committee's recommendations. That's it.
Well, no, they're all stated there, so.
They're all stated, that's right, yes. So the amount sought was 94,000 against the budget of $50,000, which was down on the previous years. But still oversubscribed. So it's still a very good outcome. The projects that were that have been recommended are all going to About the other. Right, community projects.
I'll move it.
Moved by councillor Gillis. Just to see if my councillor was, just a question, 5,000, where did the figure for that come from? Because I noticed Murray River Council 3,000.
Yeah, no, so when we introduced the community group 4 years ago, one of the recommendations was 3,000, but it was increased by council at that time to make sure that projects could be completed, because a lot of the projects are sort of $5,000 to $10,000 projects, and that I can remember that was one of the recommendations to raise it again to 5,000.
I think that should be put in front of the new council too, just to reaffirm what the level of the funding should be for their group.
Yeah, okay. And we've got our community policy, our community grants policy, which is probably around
Any further questions? Councillor Walsh.
Shall I'd just like to know why I don't quite understand this average scoring with King South there with the youth art program. Why haven't they scored more than all those down below who received full funding, and if they only received numbers out of
yeah, so I think the thought behind that with the committee was that King South is probably eligible for government funding.
ineligible.
No, eligible for other government funding.
Yeah.
But they really thought it was a fantastic project.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Any other questions?
And I might just comment on that, because that's an interesting point, Councillor Wallace. But the scoring is very subjective, and I think we actually need to review the scoring in future years, because there's some scoring, especially the initial scoring, that could be quite high. But again, it's a very subjective position from a personal perspective of people participating in the panel. So I think actually we do need to look at how the projects are scored, because those anomalies do occur because of that subjectivity.
That could be linked into checking with the new council.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
a review of that. Give it a
The
tick.
one thing that really did it was having a particular on the panel, because it just gives, I guess, different perspective of a community-minded perspective, so that works really well. So thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
One comment, just on some of the projects that came up. Did you actually go and inspect what they're asking in some of them, just like the community garden one? Or just actually get a request? What they intended, what they wanted to do?
Some of them, we didn't go and do an inspection, no, but the requests were some were quite in-depth, particularly those that scored well were quite in-depth, hence that subjectivity that comes around, while others were quite light on in terms of description. I'm not sure if my colleague would like to comment.
No, you're right. I mean, certainly the community gardens, I've been there before. Been there before, so I was familiar with the area, but certainly it helped that some of them were quite informative, and you generally know, and as part of the local community, you tend to know what's what and be able to work it out. And some of them just give no information.
Just interesting whether it's actually provided.
Some of them were absolutely awesome with the information, and then others just didn't even bother. Or one didn't fill out the form at all, it was just a one-page letter, and others provided very little information, so they didn't assist their own applications. But there wasn't a lot I wasn't impressed by as much this year as I was last year, but there wasn't as many. Yeah.
We do make our team available to speak to people beforehand, and in all of the advertising and all of the media, we offer to actually help write them, but give tips and advice on how they can improve or work with their projects. And we also give advice as to whether they're eligible, so that if they haven't acquitted some funding from other years, for example, they can make sure that they get that acquittal in.
And it's fair to say, Nick, too, some of them are very clear about what they consider a community thing, and others is based more around their particular club or. You can't stop people putting in for them, I suppose.
Right, we have discouraged a couple though that were from outside the region and just said to them, no, you're not eligible. Another one was that we discouraged from applying was really a private enterprise. So people who are looking, who are carers or disabled people, but they're actually being paid by a corporation. So, that's just not eligible. It needs to be a community group, it needs to be an incorporated group, and
I think you give feedback, don't you, Michelle, as to why they're not successful, and yeah, they don't just get a no, sorry. Explain why, yeah.
No, the stronger ones often do come and talk to us, but the ones that sort of come in very late and very lean on information, normally haven't bothered to contact us. Yeah.
That's it, something about themselves.
Mr. Mayor, we'll take that as an action to review the policy and level of funding for the council.
Moving and seconded, any further questions for comments? All those in favour? Carried. 10.8, Development Services Report. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the monthly development services report highlighting DAs have been submitted, and the status of them, values of determinations, which are tracking at or lower than in the previous year, and also just hanging statistics as well, up to date and for the last month.
Operating facility, how we can offer.
Mr. Mayor, that is at the moment on target to come to their November council meeting. It was considered whether it would be too controversial. There is a rule in place for as council would know that November will be during the caretaker period, and was considered against the requirements of the Act under the caretaker provisions as to whether this would be too controversial an application to consider by council. However, it is permissible for council to consider a dog breeding facility or any other DA, for example, that is controversial, if it would invoke if you like, a deemed refusal. And the timelines of this process are such that it can be considered by the council. So it's on track at this stage, with the process still halfway through to.
Further to that, we're waiting on further information from them. So in terms of the detailed process,
So that could change.
Yeah, at the moment we expect to be on time.
So the report coming to council in November will have two facets to it: the new facilities that they want to build and getting approval for the one that they built.
It's one application, Mr. Mayor, and the application was if you like, retrospective change of use for existing facilities that are there, and also some new dog breeding facilities as well.
Any further questions or comments? Still, we haven't moved and seconded yet. Someone like to move to the report we received? Move the report. Councillor Wallace. Second, Councillor Mitchell. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Item 10.9, thanks Mark. Major projects program.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the October progress report on major and grant funded projects the council is currently undertaking. Highlights are there in terms of more growth. The sealing of the 4th kilometre has been undertaken today. Sealing crews in town, and council will continue to work on the next sections of that road. Work at the town hall has started up again, just for the price that all contractors are back on site. Don't think what have been various lockdown requirements. Overall, we still are just contractor availability, but we are, as we highlighted before, we do use lots of Victorian contractors to undertake the work. So there's just been both issues, especially with the town hall, in contractors being able to come in and do the work. Also, our civil contractors are Victorian, but also we've seen some quotations in tenders where just unknown for contractors, we've seen a lot less interest from those contractors, which impact mainly on the building side, but we use those for the contractors.
Mark, recommendations here to note that both reports and Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Thank you, both mover and seconder. You certainly have got a sore arm pointing up to that. Can I just ask more, it seems like we're going for income.
Like where that's been an issue, because both construction and sealing and problem.
The ceiling's commencing today on the 4th.
Yeah, it is a large project, ultimately a 2-year project to reconstruct 8 kilometres. That's a big project. The initial project planning timing has it finishing sort of March next year. So in terms of how the crews that are progressing, they're actually progressing pretty well. I'm happy with how they're progressing. We've been able to work well through winter, but have been impacted by rainfall. Sealing the 4th kilometre puts us past halfway, which is a good milestone for it. The crews have really been able to get the right construction methodologies, and that's been a really good process. And it is a big project.
That regional road, which so we're going to do it properly.
It comes back as being a council asset, so we want to do it properly.
Just wondering on the first stage of Philly Road.
That was programmed to start late January, early February. Okay. I'll take that one, Councillor Mika.
Councillor Wallace.
I'd just like to compliment the staff on the notice under all this big bold writing here, very fine print. We received approved funding of fixing the Tailgate Road from Cobb Highway to Cemetery Road. That would have to be one of the biggest wins I've had. I just wanted to know, what is it going to be, a 4-metre strip? Is it, what are we going to do?
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. And recently received information, because we found out about it a little while ago, that the information is being embargoed as it is around these. The relevant ministers and that have now made their press releases, and we've received further information that it's no longer embargo, which is good. So we can now go out and spruik that, which is good. We only just got that information. So it's a full reconstruction. So from memory, it's 8 metre wide, 9 metre wide, very much stabilising what's there, using ultimately fairly similar construction methodology as we use up at Moore Road with the projects. Big issue out there is be aware is around drainage, so it's just a local maintenance on in terms of gutter, but we're always looking at drainage improvements where we can. Ultimately, it's a long stretch of road that's fairly flat, utilising table roads, and that's always a challenge for us to manage.
Can I just ask a further question? Do we think of contracting this out, doing it ourselves?
Under the funding agreement, we have to contract it out. Under a program called Fixing Local Roads, which is a stimulus program.
Any other questions? All those in favour, moved and seconded, all those in favour? Carries. Item 10.10, fees for the swim centre. For next year.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I do apologise for the table in there. Also, we had a formatting error with the some of the actually entries in the table coming in the system. So, just as part of the operation of the swim centre, the operators are required to notify council what the proposed fees are for the upcoming year. That's just a way of the operator keeps all the gate fees in that, and it's a mechanism. It's a way of just ensuring that those fees don't increase plus CPI. Just as the council is operating the facility, those fees would be in its fees and charges. So, as noted in their discussions with the operators, they've kept the fees the same as previous years, which would be the same as the year before that, so this last third year, through their whole time, their operations, where they've kept the fees the same, which is appreciated, as noting. The fees are linked to CPI increases and actually been increase over that time either. So just recommending that council endorses entrance fees for the swim centre for the upcoming season.
Good to see that fees aren't increasing. The report's there for the recommendations. Someone like to move that? Councillor Fogarty, your seconder.
And just to comment, I think we should write to the Deniliquin Outdoor Pools Incorporated and to congratulate them on keeping their fees at the same level. That's a big achievement and a real stimulus for the community, given that lots in the community have gone through tough times. So that would be good to get them a letter of congratulations.
Thoroughly agree.
Just a suggestion, maybe if something like this is, because I feel for the kids of the community through COVID, they're the ones that have probably been impacted more than we really think in terms of the schooling, the lack of stimulation, outdoor kind of recreation on all parameters. We really need to rely on state government or our local member and probably as a joint submission with the Senate committee, asking the state government to kind of have some kind of voucher for the youth of the town to utilise this type of thing, because they give it to restaurants, they give it to this type of thing, but why not give it to the kids to kind of have to utilise a facility which they would get a lot of joy out of in a particularly pretty tough time.
Great suggestion.
Councillor Wallace.
I agree with that, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like. But I'd also like to ask the next question is the fact that do we get the figures on this, Mark? How many people are the numbers going up, down? With the splash park investment, are we up, down, and what's the total dollar amount? Do we get that sort of thing?
I think Councillor Wells, we do, so we get monthly reports from them, but that note attendances, we pay an annual report, so, I'll recommend to Councillor in terms of what they speak. And it is interesting, let's say regarding Splash Park, the objectives of that was to increase usage and to see whether that's coming through, because the group operating it, they've got great ideas and take some funding for further facilities like that, like a slide and things like that. So how the splash park, which anecdotally has been great. Figures as well.
So do you have a ballpark figure in your head of what the entrance fees would be?
In terms of the amount they take in? Yes. Not off the top of my head, so. We will get that information. More than I don't have off the top of my head.
Unfortunately, no, they might be based on too, like depending on the restrictions at the time and how much movement people have. So it's a bit unfortunate for the swim centre. It's not fair in the sense that they've got a splash park, but may not have had the numbers because people weren't able to go in there and use it. So that's going to make it a bit hard.
I can add into that, and we'll add into that just linking what the having restrictions were at different times.
Yeah.
Just to give that context, that's a great context for the discussion.
Well, do you want to make an amendment to that recommendation with your suggestion?
We've got some words here. So, council endorses the proposed entrance fees to the Denilican Swim Centre for the 2021-2 season. So rights of the state government requesting that vouchers are provided to children for free entry into pools during the 21-22 swim season.
So it should be in conjunction with the operator.
Conjunction.
And local member?
Are we putting any dollar figure on this?
I mean, that's very open. I mean, it could be.
Yeah, they'll make it back with propose a 50% discount.
Yeah, it's very open-ended. You say when you want kids to have free vouchers.
My understanding was to engage with the state government in terms of programs they would have for free vouchers. For example, it does come up at different times, and with the setup and the agreement, if council, because the group do take the gate, council was going to do anything in the programs that have been free entry, and it has come up in the past where they're negotiating with them what they would expect, and they've been very fair in the discussions, but it has been an additional cost of council to make up for their any loss that they may have. But look, that being said, the benefits of the agreements we have, they are a community group, not for profit. The profit they do make do come back into the facility, and that's when they're looking at great ideas for that. So I mean, with that resolution, engaging with them and just seeing what we can negotiate, and wouldn't be an increase in council's current contributions to it. I think we'll be able to have a good discussion with them. Yeah, that's fine.
I was just thinking around, it could be like $50 voucher, but a kid wants that done, they pay that money. Visits. It's something like that.
But that's something you have to sort of get the vouchers, rather than just get the voucher.
You happy with that?
Yes, as the mover, I'm quite happy with that.
We need a seconder for that as well.
Do you want to second that, John?
Second by councillor Hall. Just a question, Mark, have we got It's been a long one.
We have, councillors would be aware, everyone would be aware that pools, especially the ages, a lot of pools now were built after certain periods of time, like wars and things like that. So we're on top of them, but we will continue to have maintenance issues. It's a maintenance, well, it's a maintenance issue. Whilst we are, council gratefully has been testing for the last few years, council need to continue to do that.
Well, it's moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? All those in favour? Against? Carried. 10.11, seniors living precinct.
That's me.
General manager, just the system has, I think it's Mr. Good.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is an update for the progress update for the seniors living precinct, which was been scheduled to come to this council meeting when council last resolved on this earlier in the year. We were hopeful of being able to determine some village budgets and financial variables that were essentially the same as hinges on. Unfortunately, we haven't been that enamored with the response from two tenders that went out in all the construction, design construction of the dwellings, as well as the civil infrastructure. So there's two further reports in the confidential section of today's meeting for council. I'd like to move motions in line with those, but essentially we're recommending that further work is required to determine village budgets and financial variables. Also, there's been a number of discussions and meetings with the Seniors Living Precinct Committee, and they've done a lot of work with around marketing and selling and discussions with those that are interested. We've got more than 20 people who are very interested in moving in, which is very good news. And unfortunately, we won't be able to provide any sort of clarity around price. That will take a little bit longer. But council is, the committee is recommending that council adopt the village name as just simply Edward River Village. And I'll just add to that, there'll be like a byline that says something like Independent Seniors Living. And the floorplan names, rather than A through to N or whatever they are for the 7 designs, we're proposing to name them after the 6 villages and Deniliquin. There is also a lot of work that has been done, which are in confidential attachments. The draft confidential village resident contract and disclosure statements. These are required under the Retirement Villages Act, and there is a governance and operations manual that has been drafted as well, which are very confidential attachments. The reason they're confidential is because they're not quite finalised yet, and the essentially governance and operations manual will also set the village rules, proposed village rules, so those still need to be worked on, but by way of a progress report, the project is progressing quite well, with the exception of there being some delays in the timelines around our expectations. We did envisage that everything going very well. There's been ambitious timelines around early next year, late this year to start construction. That won't be able to happen now with Christmas and the council election in place. We are looking at sometime in the first half of 2022, if council proceeds to adopt the budget, the finalisation of further work budgets. So I think that's about summarises everything that is in this report, Mr. Mayor, and the recommendation is there for councillors to either adopt or amend.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make some comment regarding the recommendation and also foreshadow a potential alteration. I've been on the Seniors Living Subcommittee for 2 weeks and I've put a lot of time in going through minutes of the or notes from the meetings and recommendations from the project manager. There's 8 current scenarios. And I still think it's a little bit, or a lot like the rates harmonisation process we went through. There's still a long way to go. There are still scenarios that haven't even been considered yet that I raised with the project manager yesterday, and he's happy, and he thinks there's
Potential in those. The
8 scenarios we have, none of which are affordable by this council. And I'm concerned about some, or a lot of the assumptions and that are made that are used to make up the scenarios. Through the notes, there's comments like from the project manager that I'm aware this project is not driven by commercial considerations. A weekly rent of $170 a week just covers the village operating costs, but there's scenarios there where the weekly rent's 125, and that's actually in, I'll take it confidential, I'll raise it confidential about one of the contracts, the residence contracts. The modelling break-even position for CapEx, the net position for CapEx and OpEx is to build 31 houses at a purchase price of $421 and $247 a week rent, 35% DMF. Now, there's no chance of us filling 31 houses, in my opinion, in 12 months. And the considerations around the DMF, I think, are very, very most of the models really been based around the committee's desire to increase price and weekly contribution and working backwards to find a solution to areas of design gaps.
Raise a point of order, Mr. Mayor. These are decisions that council has not made and is still a work in progress. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and in response to Councillor McCrabb's comments. There's still very much, the financial situation still needs a lot of work. We haven't received clear prices from the dwelling tenders, and hence there'll be recommendations to not proceed with those and to go out to the market again. I think it's quite premature to be raising in a public forum the prices that will be suggested, because it's just not clear on what they are. And hence why many of these attachments are still confidential, because there has been no decision made by the council on what those prices will look like. Essentially, the nub of this issue, and I agree with, I understand Councillor McCrabb's concerns. This is an entrepreneurial venture the council is undertaking, is seen as a long-term need in the community. Let me just take my mask off. It's going to be very much a decision and a debate within the council as to whether the council wants to pursue this purely on one end of the spectrum as a entrepreneurial profit-making venture, which will see sort of no loss of income, all the way through to increasing amount of community service or social impact, which is then seen as there could be some contribution from the ratepayer into making this work, which would then be resulted in some losses over a certain period of time. The point I'm saying is that council has not agreed on where that sweet spot is, where the balance around how entrepreneurial or how commercial the numbers around the success of this village will be. And therefore, my recommendation is that there still requires further work, and particularly to flesh out what are the likely scenarios and ultimately resulting in a debate within the council. We were hopeful of that debate happening in October, but with the response from the tender from the market, which is becoming a trend across the board, not just in this project, quite low responses from the market, that there still needs to be work done and debates happen within the council around the prices that will be put out.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move the motion as is, and as chair of the Living Precinct Committee, I support the comments made by the General Manager. This is a work in progress. It was a work that was commenced many years ago with the Deniliquin Council through excessive commitments that had come from the community and an enormous number of requests that had come from the community, that this was a facility that was sadly lacking within our community. Development Council took it on board in that to purchase the land, and this has been an ongoing work in progress from that time forward. There's lots of moving parts to the whole operation, and the committee has been succinctly moving through those moving parts. Not sure if any of my colleagues from the committee would like to comment further.
I would on the committee. I think the committee has made a lot of assumptions and they're making a lot of decisions about all the other things from item 2 down is all not relevant unless we get item 1 sorted in the first place. And item 1 is the issue. It's the budgets and the financial variables. And looking at the assumptions that have been given to or used by the project manager and the costs that we've incurred, to this date, that this project's cost $1.26 million. So that is a huge project management in the last 4 months has been $108,000. I just think we need to stop spending money until we get some accurate budget figures. All the inquiry and the demand for these houses is all based on a price that's $100,000 under the market. So we've got to go back to the public and say, are you prepared to pay more? Otherwise, it's just not going to float.
But the full market has not been tested.
That's right.
The word you used is scenarios, and that's exactly what we're working on, is scenario. That's correct, and that is what we're still working through.
And as I said,
We haven't gone to the public with anything in figure-wise. We have not gone to.
Price was given to me at the subcommittee meeting last Monday.
To you.
No, it's in the price was, we indicated to the public, this is the price range, was the phrase.
We haven't made any indications.
That was absolutely said.
As to the project manager, he of all people is very conservative, very commercial minded, very conservative. So I think, with all due respect, you have come in on this without the full benefit of all the conversations and everything that have happened prior to and the discussions that have taken
I've been through all the notes from all your meetings and I've been through all the scenarios.
They are scenarios.
Yeah, and we, as I said, like the rate summarisation, we might get to scenario 30.
And half of that's been spent.
Interject at some point. There is probably further opportunity for debate in the confidential, as council responds to the tender reports, which are in confidential, obviously they're commercial in confidence. So I would recommend that the current motion that's before the council be considered, and if there's any discussion that needs to have a debate around finances, then.
I'll second the recommendation.
Just a question.
Yes, Councillor McAllister.
This whole project from day one, we had various consultancies come through and we didn't get a lot of fruit from those consultancies. So I assume those costs are in the ongoing costs. So,
Yes.
So essentially there was a couple of consultancies that we just spun our wheels essentially. So,
Yes.
so the true cost of what's happening since, you know, the bit of rubber's hit the road is not that's been reported. No.
Absolutely.
So I think you've got to have a little bit of foresight or backside and just say, well, there was a lot of money spent on consultants that didn't actually achieve very much.
Yeah, correct.
Just to comment on that recommendation, as you said, Councillor McCracken, that the financials need further evaluation. I heard the word entrepreneurial. It's not really entrepreneurial, this project, it's community-based, as you said. That should be the main thing. Not the thing that concerns me. 12 months ago, we were talking about building 6 houses, now we're talking about building 31 in one hit. That makes me worry financially. Have we gone to ARAC yet with this proposal to get their view on it? I think
No, we can't do that. until you get the good information.
Well, we haven't got the information, have we?
Yeah, no, and that's the whole thing, like, there's a lot of balls in the air. And essentially, until such time as you've got contractors sort of who are prepared to do the project, you don't know what the numbers are.
No.
So let's just, there's a lot of assumptions, Pete, there's a lot of assumptions in here, there's no doubt about that. But at the moment, we are not in a position to make a decision, and we're not being asked to make a decision. And let's get all the information together so that we can tick off the assumptions, and then it becomes a bit of a no-brainer.
And I think to Michelle, when she's got numbers that pretty well target twice as many houses as we have the ability to build, I think they're, you know, also assumptions, but you have to factor them all in when you're trying to
That's on
catch
the
everything.
basis of a price that was fed to the community at the consultation meeting, which is well out of point bounds at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Mayor, I move that motion.
Thanks, councillor Fogarty. Well, motion for seconded and moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Wallace and councillor. I'll make the statement that motion, even though it's not, doesn't give permission for carte blanche to happen to the project. We'll discuss further discussions on Now, before, I've got one supplementary item here, which is the ongoing story of the Bob White Memorial Trust. I'll hand it over to you, so I'm going to remove yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, we put up an application to the Minister for Local Government around establishing a trust for the Bob White Memorial Fund. That application at this stage, unfortunately, was denied by the Minister. Since then, members of the Canaga Hall Committee and Council have met to discuss our next steps, and we do hope that we can continue down the path of trying to gain approval for the establishment of the trust. So we are asking Council that in the event that our request for the Bob White Memorial Trust be approved by the Minister for Local Government during the caretaker period, Council authorises the General Manager to take steps to establish the trust in accordance with the trust document that's provided and adopted by Council at the February 21 Council meeting. So that is the trust document that was approved. So if in the event that is approved by the Minister, we're asking Council to endorse the General Manager to continue to take steps to establish that trust in accordance with that document.
What we was just letting him know the process we're trying to get that.
So we are hoping to, through the Mayor, to meet with various ministers to discuss the establishment of the trust and what the intent of the request was, with the hope of getting that approved by the Minister. If that doesn't occur, we will then need to look at options around the establishment of something like that.
Well, the recommendations there, thanks, Sonny. We're going to move in a second. Any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favour? That is carried. I'll return over to Now, would someone like to move that we move out of general council to confidential council? Council Authority, second by Council Luther. All those in favour?
getting that.
We'll have a 5-minute break. Start.
Yeah, he's back on.
Right, back into general counsel after we've closed confidential counsel. I'll just read the recommendations. Matters there. Item 13.1, with the sale of industrial land in Sale Yards Road. Recommendation is item 1, sell lots 33, 4, 5 and 6 in Sale Yards Road to Tremble Engineering for the purchase price of $374,000 inclusive of GST. Item 2, agree for council to impose a special condition requiring a development assent to be lodged within 6 months of the contract date and physical commencement of works to occur within 6 months of the issuing of a construction certificate. Item 3, agree to a non-refundable deposit of 10% payable by the purchaser on the exchange of contracts, with settlement being 14 days from the issue of the construction certificate or 6 months from issuing the development assent, whichever comes first. Item 4, agree that a special condition within the contract referring to a supplementary side deed obligating council to refund the amount of $124,000 to the purchaser when the structural footings and foundations are completed for stage 1. Item 5, delegate to the general manager to negotiate inside the contract on behalf of the council to facilitate the sale, subject to the terms of the contract and side deed being consistent with this report. Second item on confidential council meeting was the sale and development of industrial land at the Denalford Airport. Expressions of interest. The recommendation is the council accept annual engineering as the preferred form of parcel 3, lot 52 at Denalford Airport. 2, not accept the offer of $350,000, including GST, for parcel 3, lot 52. Authorise the general manager to negotiate the appropriate land size to enable a commercially viable business expansion for the interested party. Item 4, undertake preliminary subdivision designs for the development, including the appropriate size parcel of land for the preferred proponent. Item 5, determines the cost to construct the required road, water and sewerage infrastructure. Item 6, authorises the general manager to negotiate a sale price that contributes to the cost to construct the required road, water and sewerage infrastructure. And item 7, received further report February 2022 to council. Item 13.3 was the contract for the seniors living precinct dwelling construction, and the recommendation is the council not accept any tenders as submitted for the senior living project dwelling in accordance with clause 178 brackets 1B of the local government general regulations. Since all submitted tender prices were greater than the funding for the project, and 2, re-tender the contract following review of the project documentation. Item 13.4 is the contract for the senior living precinct civil construction. Recommendation is the council not accept any of the tenders submitted for the senior living civil precinct civil construction in accordance with clause 178 of the local government regulations, since no conforming tender submissions were received, and 2, re-tender the contract following the review of the project documentation. The last item in the confidential council was 13.5, which is purchase of a water truck, 18,000 litre capacity. The recommendation is that council accept the tender submitted by the truck specialist for the purchase of an Isuzu FYJ 3000 fitted with a Barry Burrows 18,000 litre steel water tank at a total cost of $277,252. And 2, approve the existing truck noted as FM91 in Council's asset register to be sold at Pickles auctions, where it is estimated to sell between 28 and 30,000. That finishes all the recommendations. Confidential council, and with that, I'll close our October meeting. Thank you.